Have you ever sat in your car after a long day, engine off, just staring at the steering wheel, unable to bring yourself to open the door and walk inside? The headlights of passing cars sweep across the dashboard, and the world outside continues its steady, rhythmic hum. But inside that small, quiet cabin, time has completely stopped. It is not that you are physically incapable of taking those steps. It is that your body has run out of the invisible currency that allows you to engage with the world. You are entirely empty. If you are listening to this right now, feeling that quiet, heavy fatigue in your bones, I want you to pause. Take a slow, deep breath and let it go. In the comments below, leave your affirmation for today. I am letting go of what no longer serves my peace. Let this be the first deliberate, gentle choice you make to reclaim your space and acknowledge what you are carrying. We live in a world that praises holding it all together, but we rarely talk about the silent, invisible cost of that constant endurance. Emotional exhaustion is not just being tired. It is not the kind of fatigue that a good night's sleep can fix. It is a profound weariness of the self, where every minor decision feels like climbing a mountain. You stand in the grocery aisle, looking at 2 different brands of pasta sauce, and you feel a lump form in your throat because making a choice feels like an impossible math problem. You stare at a simple text from a friend asking how your week is going. And instead of feeling warmth, you feel a heavy wave of dread, because formulating a reply requires an emotional energy you simply do not possess. We spend so much of our lives looking outward, constantly scanning our environments to ensure everyone else is happy, everyone else is comfortable, and every task is completed. We manage the moods of those around us, we anticipate needs, and we pretend that we are perfectly fine because we do not want to become a burden. But in doing so, we slowly lose touch with ourselves. The analytical psychologist Carl Jung once remarked that our vision becomes clear only when we can look into our own heart. He noted that the one who looks outside is merely reacting, while the one who looks inside begins to truly understand. But looking into our own heart when we are this exhausted can be terrifying. It means we have to stop running. It means we have to look at the wreckage of our own energy and admit that we cannot carry it all anymore. It requires us to face the quiet fear that if we stop holding everything up, it might all come crashing down around us. When you are living in this state of unspoken exhaustion, your body exists in a permanent state of survival. Your shoulders are perpetually glued to your ears. Your jaw is clenched, even when you think you are resting. And your breath stays trapped in the shallow, tight space of your chest. You are physically braced for a storm that never seems to end. You are waiting for the next demand, the next emergency, the next piece of news that will require you to stretch yourself even thinner. But I want you to hear this clearly. You were never meant to be a machine of endless output. You were not created to absorb infinite pressure without ever needing to release it. The exhaustion you are feeling right now is not a sign of weakness, nor is it a personal failure. It is your body's deeply intelligent, desperate way of screaming for a pause. It is the system's emergency brake being pulled because you have ignored the warning lights on your dashboard for far too long. Rebuilding does not begin with a grand, life-altering gesture. It begins right here, in this very moment, by simply admitting how tired you are. It begins when you allow yourself to drop the heavy armor you have been wearing to protect everyone else's peace at the expense of your own. Let us sit here together in the quiet. Let the weight of having to figure everything out slip away just for a few minutes. You do not have to solve your life today. You do not have to fix your relationships, your career, or your future in this exact hour. All you have to do is exist, breathe, and begin the slow, necessary process of letting go. We often completely miss the early signs of a system in overload. We expect the warning signs to look like dramatic, cinematic moments, screaming into a pillow, weeping on the bathroom floor, or finally walking out on a situation in a burst of sudden clarity. But in reality, emotional exhaustion is much quieter, much more insidious. It does not always announce itself with a siren. Instead, it is a slow, creeping fog that quietly settles over your daily life, changing how you interact with everything and everyone you love. It begins in the smallest, most mundane moments of your day, showing up as a subtle but persistent resistance to just being alive in the world. Sometimes, this silent alarm looks like sitting on the edge of your bed in the morning, staring at your shoes, completely paralyzed by the thought of putting them on. You are not thinking about anything in particular, but your body feels as heavy as lead, as if gravity has suddenly doubled its pull on you. Sometimes, it looks like staring at a text message notification on your screen. The message is from someone you genuinely care about, a friend who only wants to check in. But looking at that little bubble sends a cold spike of dread straight down into your stomach. You realize that formulating a reply, even a simple 3-word response, requires a level of emotional processing and energy that you simply do not possess. So, you turn the phone face down, feeling a crushing weight of guilt and shame for being so unavailable. These are the moments when we must stop and pay attention, because these quiet freezes are not flaws in your character. They are not signs that you are becoming lazy, uncaring, or cold. They are the highly intelligent, biological indicators of a nervous system that has been running on high alert for months, maybe even years. When we constantly ignore our boundaries, pushing past our fatigue to meet the next deadline, appease another person, or check off another task, our system eventually runs out of the energy required for active engagement. To protect you from completely breaking down, it does what any overloaded circuit does. It trips the breaker. It shifts your body out of a state of active connection and drops you into a survival mode of quiet shutdown. Think of how your heart rate spikes slightly when you hear the gentle, familiar chime of a push notification. Think of how a tiny, everyday question, like, "What do you want to do about dinner?" can suddenly make you want to burst into tears or pull the covers over your head, because your brain has absolutely zero capacity left to make a single choice. This is your nervous system in a state of sensory overload. When your internal cup is full to the very brim, even a single drop of water will cause it to overflow. The analytical psychologist Carl Jung understood that we cannot heal what we refuse to look at. He once suggested that we do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. To make this darkness conscious means to look at these difficult, frustrating reactions not as things to be fixed or forced away, but as messengers. It means stopping the harsh internal dialogue that tells you to just get over it or push through it. Instead, it requires you to sit with your exhaustion, look at your racing heart and your heavy limbs, and say, "I see you. I see how hard you have been working to keep me safe, and I understand why you are so incredibly tired." Recognizing this state without judgment is the very first, most critical step toward finding our way back to ourselves. It is about understanding that your system is not broken. It is simply doing exactly what it was designed to do when it has been pushed too far. It is trying to save you. By pausing to listen to this silent alarm, you stop fighting against your own body. You stop treating your fatigue as an enemy to defeat and begin treating it as a dear friend who has run out of breath and desperately needs to sit down. Let yourself hear the alarm, not as a call to panic, but as a gentle invitation to stop, lay your burdens down, and finally, rest. We have been taught to believe that strength is an endless capacity to absorb impact. From a very young age, we are handed a blueprint of what it means to be resilient, and almost always, that blueprint is built on the idea of carrying heavy loads without ever showing the strain. We praise the people who never complain, the ones who show up to work even when they are hurting, and those who keep a smile on their face while their world is quietly falling apart. We tell ourselves that if we just push a little harder, organize our schedules a little better, or sleep a few more hours, we will finally catch up. We treat our minds and bodies like machines that just need a little more maintenance, rather than living, breathing systems that require genuine care. But the truth is, you cannot organize your way out of a depleted nervous system. You cannot plan or schedule your way out of deep, soul-level exhaustion. When we buy into this shove of constant strength, we create a dangerous divide within ourselves. We establish a harsh internal dictator who stands over us, demanding more production, more patience, and more endurance, while ignoring the desperate whimpers of our tired body. Think of the quiet moments of your day when you feel a wave of sadness or a sudden desire to just stop everything. And your very next thought is a sharp, critical reprimand telling you that you are being lazy, or that other people have it worse, or that you simply do not have the time to feel this way. This is how we abandon ourselves in the name of being strong. We treat our vulnerability as a defect, an inconvenient obstacle in the way of our productivity, rather than a sacred signal that we are human. The analytical psychologist Carl Jung once wrote, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." When we apply this deep wisdom to our healing, it means we must actively choose to stop defining ourselves by our capacity to endure pressure. We have to realize that our worth is not measured by how much we can suffer before we finally break. You do not have to remain the person who carries everyone else's weight at the expense of your own stability. You do not have to be the anchor that holds everyone else's ship steady while you yourself are slowly drowning in the deep. What happened to you in the past? The demands that forced you to become hyper-independent? The environments that taught you that you were only safe when you were useful? Does not have to dictate the rest of your life. You can choose to become someone who values their own peace just as much as they value the peace of others. To break free from this myth, we have to redefine what strength actually means. True strength is not found in endless holding. It is found in the immense courage it takes to acknowledge our limits and choose a different path forward. It is the bravery required to say, "I am at my limit, and I cannot do this anymore." It is the willingness to let the balls drop, to let people down if it means keeping yourself intact, and to accept that you cannot be everything to everyone at all times. Redefining strength means recognizing that softness, rest, and surrender are not signs of defeat, but the very foundations of long-term survival. When a tree is faced with a violent storm, it survives not by being rigid and unyielding, but by bending with the wind. If it refuses to bend, it snaps. Your nervous system is no different. Choosing to step off the treadmill of constant strength is a terrifying prospect because we fear what will happen when we stop. We worry that if we let go of our grip, we will lose our momentum, or that people will realize we aren't as perfect as we tried to seem. But this fear is just the ego trying to protect the old, exhausted identity that kept you safe for so long. It is time to gently thank that old version of yourself for getting you this far, and then quietly tell them that it is safe to lay the heavy shield down. You are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to be human. And most of all, you are allowed to choose yourself. Letting go is rarely a single, dramatic event. We often picture it as a grand, cinematic moment, a sweeping gesture where we pack our bags, throw our old files into the air, or walk away from a difficult situation without ever looking back. But in reality, true letting go is much quieter, much slower, and deeply physical. It is a slow, daily, moment-to-moment practice of releasing the need to control things that were never ours to carry in the first place. It is not an intellectual decision that happens solely in your mind. It is a physical release that must happen in your body. If your body does not feel safe enough to let go, no amount of logical thinking will convince your nervous system to stand down. Think of the tension you are holding right now, in this very moment. Pay attention to how you are sitting or standing as you listen to these words. Are your shoulders pinched up toward your ears, braced as if you are expecting a sudden blow? Is your jaw clenched tight, grinding against the silent words you have had to swallow today? Are your hands curled into tight, subconscious fists, or is your stomach knotted in a hard, protective shield? Your body is physically holding on to the expectation of a threat. It is acting as if the storm is still raging, even if you are currently sitting in a perfectly quiet room. This is the physical shape of survival. It is the physical manifestation of your nervous system, refusing to let its guard down because it believes that the moment it relaxes, something terrible will happen. To let go, we have to teach our bodies that the threat has actually passed. We cannot simply tell ourselves to relax. We have to show our nervous system that it is safe through very small physical choices. This starts with the tiny, immediate micro-releases that we can practice throughout the day. It is the deliberate decision to unclench your teeth right now, letting your tongue drop away from the roof of your mouth. It is the conscious choice to drop your shoulders, letting them hang heavy and loose. It is the willingness to take a slow, deep breath that reaches all the way down into your belly, letting your stomach soften and expand without restriction. Every time you consciously release a physical knot of tension, you send a direct chemical signal to your brain's internal safety centers, saying, right here, in this exact second, we are okay. It is safe to stand down. But letting go also requires us to release our mental grip on outcomes we cannot control. It is the willingness to say, I cannot solve this problem today, and that has to be okay. It is accepting that you cannot force someone to understand you. You cannot predict how the future will unfold, and you cannot edit the past. Think of how much energy you spend mentally rehearsing arguments, planning for every possible worst-case scenario, or replaying old conversations in your head, hoping for a different result. This mental loop is incredibly exhausting for your nervous system. It keeps your body flooded with stress hormones, reacting to imaginary scenarios as if they are happening in real time. When you choose to let go, you are not saying that the situation does not matter, nor are you giving up in defeat. Instead, you are making a conscious decision to stop burning your precious, limited energy on things that do not give anything back to you. You are choosing to stop fighting the reality of what is. You are deciding that your peace of mind is far more valuable than the illusion of control. It is like opening a tightly clenched hand that has been holding onto a sharp piece of glass. At first, the act of opening your fingers feels terrifying because you have been holding on so hard for so long. But as your grip loosens, you realize that holding on was the very thing causing you pain, and letting go is the only way the wound can finally begin to heal. Take another slow breath. Let your hands soften, and allow yourself to lay the struggle down, even if it is just for this one quiet moment. When we are chronically exhausted, our view of the world naturally narrows to a tiny, guarded point. It is a biological survival mechanism. When you are running on empty, your system cannot afford to process the vast, unpredictable canvas of the outer world, so it retreats. You find yourself pulling away from friends, ignoring phone calls, and turning down social invitations. You isolate yourself, not because you have suddenly stopped caring about the people in your life, but because your internal battery is simply too low to process the unpredictable energy of human connection. Every interaction, even a pleasant one, feels like a demand you cannot meet. Think of those evenings when you find yourself sitting alone in a dimly lit room, the TV playing silently in the background, not because you are actually watching it, but because the soft, flickering light is the only thing that keeps the silence from feeling too heavy. You pull your knees to your chest, wrap a blanket tightly around your shoulders, and feel a temporary sense of relief because inside this small perimeter, nothing is being asked of you. This is your personal bunker. It is a necessary space of protection, a fort you have built to keep the overwhelming demands of the outside world at bay. But while isolation can protect us from further depletion, it cannot actually restore us. If we stay in the bunker too long, the protection begins to feel like a prison. We start to feel disconnected, not just from others, but from our own lives, drifting through our days like a ghost watching from the sidelines. The analytical psychologist Carl Jung observed that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. It is a beautiful sentiment, but to become who you truly are, you must eventually allow yourself to transition out of this purely protective, defensive state. You cannot discover who you are if you are permanently hiding behind a shield. Yet, we cannot simply force ourselves to jump straight from the safety of our isolation back into the chaotic noise of busy social calendars, demanding projects, or intense emotional conversations. Trying to force that jump is like trying to run a marathon on a fractured leg. It will only cause further damage and send you retreating right back into your shell. Instead, we need a gentle, patient bridge. The transition from protection back to connection must be built on tiny, slow, and non-threatening steps. It looks like learning to connect with the physical world in ways that require absolutely nothing from you in return. Think of sitting quietly on a chair near a window with a warm cup of tea. You do not have to drink it quickly, and you do not have to think about what you are going to do next. Just hold the warm mug. Let your hands absorb the heat radiating through the ceramic. Feel the rough texture of the mug's glaze against your fingertips. Watch the steam rise and curl into the air, slowly disappearing into the room. In this simple act, you are not performing, you are not solving, and you are not protecting. You are simply experiencing. You are letting your senses gently wake up to the present moment without any threat of pressure or expectation. Or perhaps the transition looks like stepping outside onto your porch for just 2 minutes. You do not have to go for a walk. And you do not have to meet a neighbor. Just stand there. Feel the cool breeze brush against your face. Listen to the rustle of the leaves in the wind, or the distant, muffled sounds of the world outside. Notice the weight of your feet pressing firmly into the ground. These small physical anchors are incredibly powerful. They show your nervous system that the world is not just a place of demands and fatigue. It is also a place of soft textures, pleasant temperatures, and quiet moments. By practicing these small connections, you slowly train your system to realize that it is safe to open up again. You are building a quiet confidence within your body, demonstrating that you can interact with your surroundings without being consumed by them. You are teaching yourself that you can step out of the bunker, look around, and find that the air is clear, the ground is stable, and you are finally ready to gently step back into your own life. Our modern lives are saturated with subtle, invisible demands on our attention. It is not just about the heavy, obvious work we do or the difficult conversations we must have. It is the constant, buzzing background noise of modern existence that we barely even notice anymore. We have become so accustomed to a world that never sleeps, never pauses, and never stops broadcasting that we have forgotten what true silence actually feels like. Think of the way you automatically, almost unconsciously, reach for your device the moment there is a single second of quiet. You are standing in line at a grocery store, or waiting for water to boil, or sitting at a red light. And before you even realize what you are doing, your hand is in your pocket, pulling out your screen. You find yourself scrolling mindlessly through endless streams of information, reading stories that do not matter to you, looking at photos of people you do not know, or checking notifications just to fill the empty space. Every single piece of information your eyes take in is something your nervous system has to actively process. Every headline, every video, every colorful advertisement, and every social update requires a tiny microscopic spark of cognitive energy. When you are already emotionally exhausted, this constant stream of input acts like a slow, steady leak in an already empty fuel tank. You think you are relaxing when you lie on the couch and scroll through your feed, but your brain is actually working overtime, sorting, filing, and reacting to a barrage of sensory stimuli. Your nervous system cannot distinguish between the real-world stress of a looming deadline and the digital stress of absorbing 100 different opinions, global crises, and social comparisons all at once. It keeps your body in a low-grade, perpetual state of emergency, never allowing your internal alarms to fully switch off. Rebuilding your system requires creating deliberate, sacred pockets of nothingness. It means having the courage to protect your attention as if your very life depends on it, because the quality of your peace certainly does. This does not require you to throw away your technology or live in complete isolation. Instead, it looks like introducing tiny, intentional boundaries that give your mind a chance to breathe. It is the choice to leave your device in another room when you sit down to eat a meal, allowing yourself to actually taste your food. Feel the texture of what you are eating and exist in the quiet rhythm of your own home. It is the willingness to sit in absolute silence for just 5 minutes before you begin your day, letting your thoughts settle like sediment in a glass of water before the world rushes in to stir them up again. Imagine the profound relief of a morning where the first thing you greet is your own breath, rather than a screen filled with other people's demands, opinions, and lives. Imagine the quiet strength that comes from reclaiming your transition times, the space between waking up and working, the space between arriving home and going inside, as moments of pure, uninterrupted presence. When we replace the digital noise with quiet, we are not just avoiding distractions. We are actively inviting our souls to catch up with our bodies. We are telling our nervous system that it is safe to stop processing, stop reacting, and stop defending. We are offering ourselves the rare and beautiful gift of an empty space, a quiet canvas where our energy can slowly, gently begin to pool and gather once again. Many of us struggle with deep, chronic exhaustion because our internal boundaries have slowly become entirely porous. Over time, without even realizing it, the thin line that separates our own well-being from the demands of the outer world begins to fray and dissolve. We say yes when our bodies are screaming no, terrified that if we set a limit, we will be seen as selfish, cold, or disappointing. We take on the emotional burdens, the worries, the anxieties, and the problems of the people around us, confusing deep empathy with self-sacrifice. We act as if we are responsible for managing the climate of every room we walk into, absorbing the tension, the unspoken anger, or the sadness of others as if it is our own to fix. Think of how often you find yourself lying awake in the middle of the night, your heart beating in a shallow rhythm, not because of a problem in your own life, but because you are mentally trying to untangle a knot in someone else's. You replay their struggles, you feel their pain in your chest, and you exhaust your own mind trying to find a solution for a path that is not yours to walk. This is what it means to live without a boundary. It is like living in a house without any walls or doors, where every passing wind, every storm, and every traveler can walk right through your living space, disrupting your peace and scattering your belongings. You are constantly reacting to the weather of everyone else's lives, leaving your own internal home in a state of perpetual chaos and ruin. To rebuild your nervous system, you must construct a clear, gentle boundary between where you end and where the rest of the world begins. This does not mean you stop caring, and it does not mean you lock your heart away in a cold, unyielding fortress. True boundaries are not walls designed to keep people out. They are doors that allow you to choose what is safe to let in. It means accepting, deep in your soul, the liberating truth that you are not responsible for fixing every broken situation or managing everyone else's difficult emotions. You are not the savior of the world, and you were never meant to be. Other people have their own journeys, their own lessons, and their own capacity to grow through their struggles. And when you constantly step in to carry their weight, you are not only draining yourself, but you are also robbing them of their own strength. This restoration begins with a simple, quiet practice in the moments when you feel the pressure building. When you feel that familiar, urgent tug to step in, to fix, to apologize for things you did not do, or to take on a burden that belongs to another, pause. Close your eyes, place a hand over your heart, and take a slow, grounding breath. Feel the physical outline of your own body. Remind yourself of your own physical edge. In the quiet of your mind, say to yourself, "This is not my weight to carry." Let those words act as a protective, invisible shield. Picture them gently returning the heavy package back to the floor, refusing to lift it. This simple phrase allows your nervous system to remain calm, anchored, and centered, rather than being violently pulled into the center of everyone else's storm. By choosing to hold your ground, you are not being cruel. You are simply preserving the precious, limited energy you need to heal your own life. You are deciding that you have a right to your own peace, a right to your own quiet, and a right to say, "I cannot," without offering a long, pleading explanation. You are finally giving yourself permission to step back, to breathe, and to let the world carry itself for a while. When we begin the incredibly tender process of rebuilding our lives, we often want instant, immediate results. We live in a society that measures progress by speed, and we unconsciously bring that same rushed, demanding energy to our healing. We want to do 3 days of deep rest, drink a few cups of tea, write in a journal, and expect to feel completely rejuvenated, ready to conquer the world again. But a nervous system that took years to deplete, a system that has been worn thin by decades of survival, constant pressure, and unspoken worries, will not recover in a single quiet weekend. You cannot rush the thawing of a heart that has been frozen in survival mode for so long. We must learn to let go of our expectations of what recovery is supposed to look like. Think of those frustrating days when you wake up feeling a tiny spark of your old energy, only to find that by afternoon, the heavy, familiar fog has rolled back in, leaving you feeling just as exhausted as before. It is so easy in those moments to feel defeated, to think you are doing something wrong, or to believe that you are broken beyond repair. But this up and down rhythm is not a sign of failure. It is the natural, swaying tide of deep healing. Your system is testing the waters, slowly learning how to trust that it is truly safe to relax, stepping forward and stepping back in a delicate dance of recovery. The analytical psychologist Carl Jung once noted a profound truth. The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. When you apply this to your own journey of restoration, it means that your timeline for healing is entirely, beautifully your own. And it absolutely cannot be compared to anyone else's. There is no standard formula, no rigid checklist, and no universal pace that you must force yourself to match. If your body demands 12 hours of deep, undisturbed sleep. You must let it sleep without an ounce of guilt. If your mind requires an entire afternoon of absolute quiet, looking out at the sky, or sitting in an empty room, you must give it that space without calling yourself lazy. Rebuilding is never a straight, linear line. It is a slow, winding path through a quiet forest, where some days the light will break beautifully through the trees, and other days you will find yourself walking through the mist once again. Both of these days are necessary. Both of these days are sacred parts of the healing process. When the fog returns, it is not a regression. It is simply your body's gentle request to slow down even further, to wrap yourself in a little more kindness, and to lower the bar of expectation just a bit lower. To embrace the slow pace is to stop treating your healing like another project on your to-do list. It is the willingness to surrender your demands for progress and instead ask your body, day by day, moment by moment, what do you need from me right now? Sometimes the answer will be a long walk. Sometimes the answer will be to lie on the floor and do absolutely nothing at all. Both are correct. By honoring the pace of your own body, you are practicing the ultimate form of self-love. You are proving to your nervous system that you are no longer the demanding master who forces it to perform, but a gentle, patient ally who is willing to wait as long as it takes to find your way back home. Let go of the clock. Let go of the calendar. And simply trust the quiet, invisible work that is happening in the stillness. As your system slowly begins to settle, and the heavy protective layers of survival mode begin to lift, you will notice a gentle, almost imperceptible shift. The world around you will start to lose its sharp, hostile edges, and it will quietly begin to regain its color. For a long time, when you were in the depths of emotional exhaustion, your brain had to turn down the volume on everything just to keep you from being overwhelmed. Joy, beauty, and delight felt like distant, foreign concepts, things you could observe in other people's lives, but could not physically feel in your own. But now, as safety returns to your body, your senses will begin to wake up from their long, protective slumber. You will find yourself noticing the smallest, most ordinary things with a sudden, quiet warmth. You might catch yourself pausing to watch the way the afternoon sunlight filters through the window, casting a warm, golden patch on the wooden floor. You might feel a sudden, genuine spark of interest in an old hobby you had set aside months or years ago. A book you wanted to read, a sketch pad you left in a drawer, or a melody you used to love playing. You might find yourself stopping to listen to the steady, comforting sound of rain hitting the glass, or feeling the simple, physical pleasure of clean, cool sheets against your skin at the end of the day. These quiet moments are not just pleasant distractions. They are incredibly profound, biological milestones. They are the unmistakable signs that your nervous system is finally moving out of the rigid, defensive freeze of survival mode and gently stepping back into a state of thriving. Your body is realizing that it no longer has to spend 100% of its energy on scanning for threats, maintaining boundaries, and just keeping you upright. It finally has a small, beautiful surplus of energy, a tiny reservoir of light that it can use to simply enjoy being alive. It is incredibly important that you do not rush to fill this new, fragile energy with more work, more tasks, or more obligations. It is so easy to feel a little bit better and immediately think, great, now I can catch up on everything I neglected while I was tired. But you must guard this quiet, newly recovered vitality closely. Cultivate it gently, the way you would tend to a tiny, delicate seedling that has just broken through the dry earth after a long winter. Do not demand that it grow overnight, and do not put it to work. Instead, practice reclaiming these small joys solely because they bring you a sense of ease, safety, and delight, without any expectation of productivity, achievement, or purpose. You do not need to turn your hobby into a side project. You do not need to share your quiet moments on a screen for others to validate. You do not have to justify the time you spend simply enjoying the warmth of the sun on your face. This joy belongs entirely to you. It is the sweet, gentle medicine that coaxes your nervous system further out of its shell, showing it that life is not just a series of trials to be endured, but a beautiful, soft experience to be tasted. Let yourself linger in these moments. Let the warmth of a small joy sink deep into your bones, and trust that you are slowly, surely, coming back to life. Rebuilding your nervous system is, ultimately, a slow and sacred return to yourself. It is the quiet realization that you are finally allowed to exist in this world without constantly having to earn your space, without having to prove your worth through endless struggle, achievement, or quiet endurance. For so long, you may have believed that you were only safe when you were useful, only loved when you were performing, and only valued when you were carrying the weight of everyone else's world. But as you step into this final space of healing, you begin to see the beautiful, simple truth. You are allowed to be soft. You are allowed to be quiet. You are allowed, without an ounce of guilt, to have limits. Think of who you were before the exhaustion took over, before the worries of life carved deep, protective grooves into your daily routine. Perhaps you were someone who laughed easily, someone who could sit in a room without feeling the urgent, anxious need to fix something, or someone who could look at the future with a sense of wonder, rather than a quiet, protective dread. That person did not vanish. They were not erased by the years of survival and pressure. They have simply been waiting in the quiet, resting beneath the heavy armor you had to wear for so long to keep yourself safe. The return of yourself is not about becoming someone entirely new. It is about gently, lovingly peeling back the layers of defense so that the person you have always been can finally step out into the light. As you prepare to move forward into your days, I want you to carry this gentle, unwavering truth with you. Letting go is not an act of surrender, weakness, or defeat. It is an act of profound self-preservation. When you choose to step away from the noise, when you choose to say no to the demands that drain your spirit, and when you choose to honor the quiet fatigue in your bones, you are not giving up. You are choosing to step away from the fire so that your system can finally truly cool down. You are making the brave, revolutionary decision to live your life rather than just endlessly surviving it. You are deciding that you are worth the time, the patience, and the care it takes to heal. This return is not a loud event. There will be no grand announcements, no sudden bursts of absolute clarity where everything in your life perfectly falls into place. Instead, it will show up in the quietest, most beautiful moments. It will look like waking up on a random Tuesday and realizing that the heavy, suffocating knot in your chest has dissolved into a soft, open space. It will look like standing in your kitchen, feeling the cool floor beneath your bare feet, and realizing you aren't rushing to the next task, but are simply, peacefully there. It will look like the quiet confidence that comes when you can look at a problem, realize it is not yours to carry, and simply breathe through the moment without being pulled into the storm. Keep taking those slow, deliberate, and belly-deep breaths. Keep honoring your boundaries with a soft but firm grace. Trust with everything you have that your mind and body know exactly how to heal, how to restore, and how to bloom again when you finally give them the permission and the quiet space to rest. You have carried the weight of the world for long enough. The storm has passed. The ground beneath you is safe and stable, and you are finally, beautifully, free to come home to yourself. As we bring this journey to a close, take a moment to look back at the ground you have covered. Healing is not about reaching a perfect, untouchable destination where stress no longer exists. It is about building a new, gentler relationship with yourself, one where you finally promise to listen when your body speaks, and where you refuse to abandon yourself for the comfort of others. You have spent so long carrying the invisible weight of everyone else's expectations, but today, you have actively chosen to lay that heavy armor down. Before you step back into the flow of your daily life, let us seal this promise together. If you have not done so yet, or if you feel a deeper, renewed sense of commitment in this quiet moment, take a second to leave your affirmation in the comments below. I am letting go, and I am choosing my peace. By typing these words, you are translating a quiet internal decision into a physical action, leaving a gentle footprint on the path toward your own recovery. The road ahead of you does not require you to be perfect, and it certainly does not require you to be fast. It only asks you to be kind to yourself. When the world demands more than you have to give, remember the quiet cabin of your car, the warmth of the tea against your palms, and the steady, grounding rhythm of your own breath. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to slow down.